Alright, hello 7th grade. So I know we haven't met in person yet, but I figured I would do this tutorial video for you for this next project because it is a little more complex. So you'll see that I just briefly showed the finished product that you can see on the Google site. I'll have a few photos of both of the finished pieces that I did up there. So we're starting off with a piece of paper. I'm using watercolor paper, a pencil, a ruler, and I have a circle template, but anything that makes a circle will work. You could use a roll of tape or a soda can, anything. So I'm putting the circle off to the side, and you'll notice that I didn't put the circle all the way on the paper. And this is to help increase the perspective. You'll see I put a little dot in the center here, and I'm drawing lines down. And I'm just going every so often, not really measuring that. And I'm going all the way around. And it looks like I'm making a fancy kind of sun with the rays in the corner. But these are going to become our bricks. So I'm going to show you a really cool and easy way to get a really sophisticated brick texture. So from the circle downward, we're going to start close together and work our way to farther apart. It's kind of like the last project, which helps it look like it's going back in space. So I am just roughly sketching a ring. There is no perfect way to do this without a very specific tool. So I just recommend you eyeball that as best you can. So you'll see I'm getting farther and farther apart as I go away from my first circle, until I get down to the bottom. Now I do apologize, later in this video I didn't realize some of this was off frame, so some of the things I'm drawing you won't see the whole thing. Right now I'm just adding in this little patch of dirt, and then I'm roughly sketching in that frog for later. Just a very simple outline and a few little features, nothing too specific yet. I'll get to that when I do the painting. Now, again, for this, I am using watercolor, but you can definitely use colored pencil or marker or whatever you have on hand. That is not going to affect your grade by any means, because I know that we don't all have art supplies just sitting around at home. So once I fussed with the frog until I was happy with it, I went ahead and I started on the bricks. So the bricks are going to go every other circle here, and you'll see that I'm putting in some sort of squiggly lines that are kind of like a goofy square. And you don't have to be perfect. Actually, you want some wavy lines, and you'll see that I'm leaving a little bit of space in between those bricks. And that's for the mortar. So I'm going every other one, placing these sort of squares in there. And I'm going to do that until I reach the edge of my paper, all the way down at the bottom. So you can see this is definitely starting to look like a well with the brickwork, and how when we put those spaces in, it added that illusion of depth. It looks like those bricks closest to the frog and close to us are the biggest. Now, for each other row, you're going to go and put the bricks in between the other two. Because when you build with bricks, if you look, they're staggered, and you don't place them right on top of one another. So what I did was, looking at those lines that come straight down, I just went halfway and drew my bricks out so that they went halfway, roughly, in between the other bricks. And you're going to go ahead and just repeat that for the entire rows that you haven't done quite yet. And this is definitely where the bulk of the thinking comes in for this. You just have to remember to keep going halfway. And remember, you definitely don't have to be too neat. You can see that some of my lines touch each other in a few spots. That's perfectly okay. The reason I drew the frog in first was so that we didn't have to draw the bricks over top of him and then erase that later. So you'll see I'm adding in the details here of the outside of the well looking at the sky. I'm putting in a few clouds and some grass and flowers. And you'll notice that I put them all the way around because they would be hanging over the edge of the well. So I'm going to rotate the paper, and as it's facing me, simply draw straight up. That's going to help us get it to be evenly around so that they aren't tilted to one side, because everything is going to go and face into that center dot that we made. And you can draw as many flowers or as much grass as you like. That is completely up to you. Alright, so now that we've done all of this very hard work, we're going to go ahead and retrace everything that we have done, every pencil line. Now, I know what you're thinking, that this is definitely quite a bit of work, but you don't have to be as slow and precise as when you were drawing it. And if you trace it with the Sharpie and it doesn't quite match up, that's also okay, because again, those bricks aren't going to be perfect. So I'm just going row by row, each brick, and I'm just working my way down. Now you'll see me start to color in the frog, so I'm just tracing all of the lines that I put in here. And I'm going to add a few other details. I put a few stripes on his backs and on his legs. You can decorate him with any texture you want. You don't even actually have to have the frog. You could put a different animal down there if you like. Now I have a fine micron pen that I dug up from some old art supplies. You can use a regular Bic pen or a gel pen, whatever you have on hand here. This was just the easiest thing for me to find in all of my art supplies, and it's going to give me some really fine lines. Because those objects are far away from us in this picture, so I didn't want them to be the same line thickness as the bricks. And since they are far away, you'll notice that I don't have them very detailed, which is definitely okay, because they're very small, and if you're looking at them from far away, you wouldn't notice every petal, the textures on the petals, things like that. And then I'm just roughing in the clouds. You may see me here, after I have outlined the clouds, add a few bumpy lines inside. And that's just to help the clouds look puffy and three-dimensional. So once we have everything inked and lined in, we're going to take an eraser and erase those lines that we made. So you can use a pencil eraser if you have a big one. That will definitely help I'm using a kneaded eraser here. It's like a giant gummy sticky tack. And the best way to go about this is to follow the lines and erase going down. Now, in between the bricks, you don't have to worry so much. We're going to color those in. And you'll see me backtracking here. I had forgotten to put the edge of the bricks at the well, so I was just touching that up. Now, for those of you that are going to paint, before I painted, I took a gray colored pencil and I'm going to color in all of the lines here in between these bricks, just for the mortar. Now, I found the easiest way to do this is just to go around in rings, color the rings in, and then go back in and color the lines that are going downward in the well, or rather outward. And that seemed to work fastest for me. I had to take a little break here, had to sharpen my pencil. And again, you don't have to be super precise with this, especially if you're going to use watercolor paint like I am. Okay, so now once that I had all of my colored pencil in and everything inked and all of my pencil lines erased, I pulled out my watercolors. Now again, you can use colored pencils for this. I would just recommend that starting toward the frog, you'll notice that I color darker and work my way up till it's lighter. So press heavier with the colored pencil on the bigger bricks and work your way up to the end of the well where the mouth of the well is, and don't press very hard. And you're still going to get that trick of the light that makes it look like we're down a deep well. So what you can see, what I have not accidentally cut off from the frame here, is that I'm working wet in wet, meaning that I am putting water down on the paper before I apply the paint. And this is going to help the paint spread. So I'm only using one color here, and that's all I'm going to use for the whole well, is one color. So I'm dipping that in my color and spreading that on, and I'm not going too heavy. I'm going to put a light layer down and then slowly work until I have darker colors, because if I go too dark too soon, the top of that well is going to be very, very dark, and I want that to be very transparent. I want that color to be very light. The wet in wet also helps this paint spread very, very easily. And you can see that I'm making these brush strokes that kind of follow the curve of those circles. I'm doing that so that the rows of bricks tend to have the same value, which is the same lightness or darkness of that color. And you'll see if I needed more, I just added a little splash of color, and then I blended that. And you'll notice that the colored pencil stays in place. That's because the colored pencil is wax-based. So the watercolor paint won't affect it. Now, if you're painting with acrylic paint, you would definitely have to stay inside the lines. So I do recommend either using colored pencils or watercolor for this. Acrylic paint will take a long, long time. So what you may be able to see a part of here is me working on the bricks and the frog. So I'm taking this paint, and on the bricks that are closest to us, I'm using the same color, but not as much water. And I'm just kind of going in and darkening parts of these bricks. And that's helping to add detail. So the more contrast, or the light to dark in the same brick that we have closer up, it's going to have more detail. So as I move up, I'm simply adding less and less, or maybe just a little bit of that dark in each one. And then some of the top bricks I barely even touch, if at all. So I'm doing the same for the frog here, which is a little off screen, but I'm painting him all one color of yellow with a few red spots. So I have gone through, and with a lot of water, I added that yellow very lightly. And then in spots where I wanted it to be a little darker, I just went in with that yellow and a little less water and went right over top of it. And you'll see that in the final product in the shot. I also used a yellow and mixed it with a little bit of brown here to make the dirt. I didn't want the dirt to be the same part, or the color as the well, because then it would blend in. So our final step here is just to paint in the little bit of landscape that we have, that sky. So I'm going to start with just one color of green for the grass here. I'm going to go ahead and work on the grass and the flowers, and then fill in the sky and the clouds last. And you may notice, if you can see, that I'm going outside my lines. That's perfectly fine with this. Since there isn't a lot of detail and it isn't far away, those ink lines that I'd put in there, they were just for a little added detail. I didn't mean for them to be lines that I would use as the edge or the template for that flower. So you'll see that my blue turned out really dark there. So all I did was I added a little bit of water, and then I just kept spreading the paint out with this really small brush. Now, if you would like a dark sky, you would have to use more concentrated paint. And there you have it. All right, thanks everybody. Don't forget to submit your projects to the Google Classroom and submit your attendance by saying here. You can reach me at my email, my school email, if you have any issues, and I definitely look forward to seeing how these turn out this week. Have a good week, everyone.